It is August 19, 1953. The morning sun rises over Tehran, casting long shadows. The air is dry and warm, carrying the scent of tea and bread from corner cafes nearby. Men gather to read newspapers and argue politics, unaware of what is coming today. The city hums with the sounds of merchants opening shops, children walking to school. This is a city of 2 million souls, about to witness the death of their democracy. Within hours, tanks will roll through these streets and blood will stain the pavement. Iran's future will be rewritten by foreign hands that claim to bring freedom to the world. This is the story of the day the CIA overthrew Iran's government and changed everything. The day that changed the Middle East forever and planted seeds of conflict. To understand this moment, we must go back 2 years to a time of hope and defiance. In the spring of 1951, a tall elderly man became Iran's prime minister through election. His name was Mohammad Mossadegh, and he had one radical idea that would seal his fate. Iran's oil should belong to Iran, not to foreign companies extracting massive profits. For decades, the Anglo-Iranian oil company had extracted billions in black gold here. Iranian workers labored in brutal heat for pennies while British shareholders grew rich. The company kept 2 sets of books to hide its massive profits from the Iranian people. When Mossadegh saw these numbers, his anger was not zeal but simple moral outrage instead. It was outrage at systematic theft that had continued for more than 40 years. Mossadegh nationalized the oil industry in a vote that passed through parliament loudly. The vote passed with thunderous applause, and the Iranian people erupted in celebration. Women ululated from rooftops while men wept with joy in the streets below them. For a brief moment, Iran felt like the master of its own destiny at last. But in London and Washington, powerful men began plotting his destruction immediately. The British were furious, their empire bleeding revenue with each passing day of control. Churchill himself called for Mossadegh's removal, declaring Britain could not tolerate this. They convinced the Americans that Mossadegh was a communist threat to Western interests, a dangerous radical who would open Iran's doors to Soviet influence and expansion. It was a lie, but it was a lie that worked perfectly because fear trumps truth. America's fear of communism outweighed its commitment to democracy in foreign lands. President Eisenhower gave the green light, and the machinery of covert action began to turn. In the summer of 1953, the CIA launched Operation Ajax to topple Iran's elected government. The architect was Kermit Roosevelt, grandson of President Theodore Roosevelt himself. A man who moved through Tehran's shadows like a ghost, dispensing cash and orders secretly. He arrived with a suitcase full of money and a network of agents ready to execute the plan. The strategy was simple in theory. Bribe military officers, buy off corrupt politicians, hire street thugs to create chaos and confusion in the capital's busy streets and markets, pay newspapers to print lies about Mossadegh being mentally unstable and dangerous to Iran, forge documents to make him look like a traitor plotting against Islam and Persian values. Make it all look like an organic popular uprising against a tyrant instead of the truth. Rather than what it really was, a foreign coup d'etat orchestrated by the CIA entirely. Roosevelt worked from a basement safe house, coordinating bribes worth millions today. Over $1 million handed out in envelopes to generals and gangsters alike then. All bought with American money. All acting on American orders without hesitation. On August 15th, the first coup attempt failed spectacularly when loyalists refused orders. Loyal military units refused to arrest Mossadegh and arrested the conspirators instead. The Shah, Iran's young monarch and America's chosen puppet, fled the country in panic. He flew first to Baghdad, then to Rome in disgrace, certain his reign had ended forever. His wife wept openly at the airport, believing they would never see Tehran again. For 3 days it seemed the coup had collapsed completely, and democracy had survived. Democracy had survived against the world's most powerful intelligence agency and its money. Mossadegh's supporters filled the streets of Tehran, tearing down statues of the Shah. They celebrated what they believed was their final victory over tyranny and foreign control. Newspapers declared the monarchy finished, done, over for good, and gone from Iran forever. Crowds danced in fountains while revolutionary songs echoed off ancient walls. But Roosevelt refused to give up, pouring more money into bribes and propaganda quickly. More money into lies and manufactured chaos, with desperate determination to succeed. On the morning of August 19th, the second wave began with precision and brutal efficiency. Crowds of paid demonstrators flooded into the Bazaar district, chanting loyalist slogans. They chanted slogans and waved the Shah's portrait above their heads in manufactured passion. They were thugs and circus performers hired with CIA cash, not real patriots at all. Strongmen and wrestlers given $50 each to play patriots for the cameras watching. Anti-Mossadegh mullahs, paid handsomely by American agents, preached fiery sermons that day. They declared the Prime Minister an enemy of Islam and Persian tradition deserving death. At noon exactly, the crowds turned violent, smashing windows with clubs and rocks everywhere. They attacked government buildings while police watched in confusion and mounting fear. Gunfire echoed through narrow alleyways as chaos spread rapidly through the city center. Police struggled to contain the manufactured violence spreading like wildfire through Tehran. Shop owners pulled down their metal shutters and locked doors, hiding inside from the chaos. Mothers grabbed their children and fled indoors, away from the violence in the streets below. The smell of tear gas mixed with smoke from burning cars and buildings throughout the city. By early afternoon, army tanks commanded by bribed officers began rolling toward their target. They rolled toward Mossadegh's residence on Coup Avenue with cannons loaded and aimed. The Prime Minister's guards fought back desperately, firing from windows and the rooftops. But they were outnumbered and outgunned by forces that should have been protecting him. The sound of artillery shook the entire city as shells slammed into buildings hard. Smoke and dust billowed into the bright summer sky and apocalyptic clouds above Tehran. Chunks of masonry crashed into the street as historic buildings burned and crumbled down. Their facades crumbled under sustained bombardment from American-supplied tanks. By 4 in the afternoon, it was over, finished, the coup complete and irreversible. Democracy in Iran was dead before sunset on what had begun as an ordinary summer day. Mossadegh escaped through a back garden wall but surrendered the very next day. He knew further resistance would only bring more bloodshed to the people he loved most. He was imprisoned, tried in a military court packed with the Shah's loyalists. He spent the rest of his life under house arrest in silent dignity, never giving in. The Shah returned in triumph days later, landing at Tehran's airport to applause. Cheering crowds had been carefully assembled and paid for by CIA operatives with cash. Democracy in Iran died that day, replaced by a monarchy that would rule with brutality. The CIA distributed millions of dollars to its collaborators in the days that followed. They congratulated themselves on a mission accomplished with minimal American casualties. Kermit Roosevelt returned to Washington a hero, briefing President Eisenhower. He briefed on how easily a government could be toppled with enough cash. But the consequences of August 19, 1953, would echo through the decades that followed. The Shah's regime grew more repressive with each passing year, more brutal. His secret police, Savak, tortured dissidents and crushed opposition with violence. Iranian resentment festered beneath the surface, a wound that never healed at all. It grew more infected with each decade of autocratic rule and American support for the Shah. In 1979, that festering wound finally exploded in revolution, sweeping away the Shah. It swept away the Shah and brought the Islamic Republic to power that rules Iran today. The hostility between Iran and America, the decades of sanctions and proxy wars, all trace their roots back to that summer day in Tehran when democracy was murdered. Today, the street where Mossadegh lived bears a different name on maps and in memory. Few young Iranians know the full story of what happened in those crucial hours. But in the CIA's own declassified documents, released decades later under pressure, the agency finally admitted its role in the coup with bureaucratic precision. The operation that seemed like a Cold War victory became a case study in consequences. A case study in unintended consequences and imperial hubris taught in universities now. In the bazaar, where hired thugs once smashed windows for American dollars back in 1953, merchants now sell carpets and spices to tourists from around the world seeking treasures. The buildings that burned in 1953 have been rebuilt, their scars hidden beneath paint, their scars hidden beneath modern facades that disguise the violence of that summer day. But the scars on Iran's political memory remain raw and unhealed even now. They shape its suspicion of Western powers to this day, and for generations to come. The coup of 1953 taught the world a hard lesson about democracy and oil and power, about what happens when great powers decide their interests matter more than freedom. It showed how easily a foreign government can topple another with sufficient resources, when money and violence are deployed with sufficient skill and ruthlessness. And it proved that such victories are often Pyrrhic, planting seeds of resentment, planting seeds that bloom into revolutions decades later with terrible vengeance. On that August morning in 1953, Tehran was a city of hope and possibility, a young democracy finding its voice in the modern world after centuries of monarchy. By sunset that same day, it was a cautionary tale for the ages, a warning to history, a reminder that freedom is fragile and power is ruthless when oil and empire collide. Like and subscribe. The next chapter of Covert history is even more shocking.